Welcome to the Doctor Bros, where we have an honest discussion around vet life in and out of the clinic. My name is Adam. I am your doc of the day and your guide through this episode. I am here as always with my closest friends from vet school.
Hey, this is Jeff. I am a dermatology associate veterinarian in Louisville, Kentucky.
Hey, this is Brandon. I'm a small animal internal medicine resident at Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa.
Hey, this is Chris. I'm a GP in North Carolina.
And again, this is Adam. I am a relief veterinarian in Louisville, Kentucky. And on today's episode, we're going to be touching on different technologies that we use within the clinic. But before we get started on our main topic, we're going to play a little fun game to get the juices, get the blood flowing a little bit. So we're kind of playing, I guess, Clue zombie apocalypse version. So I'm going to give you a scenario where there's a zombie apocalypse. You get to take one partner with you, and you get to take one item with you. However, you have to pick from these three people to be your partner and pick from these three items to take with you on your adventure in the zombie apocalypse. All right. So you guys can just kind of spout out your answers. So the three people that you can choose from to be your partner in this journey are Lady Gaga, Mr. Rogers, or Gandhi. And the item that you can take with you or have with you on this journey is a bedsheet, a bar of soap, or a 2005 Nissan Altima with no engine and busted out windows.
What?
This is Chris. I'm going Mr. Rogers and bedsheet.
Why?
Mr. Rogers, I'm pretty sure, was also in some type of armed forces. I want to say he was a Marine. Don't quote me on that. So he's probably has some skills. I can't travel with an Altima that's busted out. What was the other item besides the bedsheet?
Nobody can.
Bar soap.
Bar soap. Yeah, I mean, bedsheet, we can cut it up, make it into rope. That's some tinder right there. We can make it and use it as a bag for something. I mean, I can make uses out of that. And then Mr. Rogers will be Mr. MacGyver at that point. So that's my choice.
Okay. I'm ready. That took me a minute. So I am going to be taking Stephanie Joanne Angelina Germanata.
Okay.
And I had to Google it.
Just say her stage name, damn it.
Lady Gaga. And I am going to take the Nissan Altima as like shelter. Obviously, we're not going anywhere with it. But maybe if we find another car, I can use those pieces to help with the next car. But at least I'll have like some buffer at night. I don't know. And she's very small. So like she can be in the front seat and I can take the back seat.
This is Brandon. I think I take Mr. Rogers just because life experience. Like I think he would know what to do no matter what terrible object we had to choose from.
And you can outrun him.
I think that I do the bedsheet too, mainly because, like Chris said, you can kind of make it into a backpack. You can make it into like something to keep you warm. Like there are uses there. I think about like the Ultima and stuff. Like, could I find tires somewhere? Could I find an engine to put in there? But like, how the hell am I going to get an engine to the car? There's a lot of different ins and outs of there that are just not going to be going very well. So that's what I'm going to go with.
All solid answers. I'm going to go with Lady Gaga as well. And I'm going to take the bar of soap. And I'm going to kind of rub it down till I can make a shiv. And I'm going to have Lady Gaga do a dance and distract the zombies, and I'll sneak up behind and just kind of jab them, I think it'll work. I think we'll be safe.
Okay.
So, won't the bar of soap disintegrate after the first jab?
Yeah, I was thinking like you might want to just keep the soap. There's probably not a lot of soap around.
Okay, maybe I'll take the bedsheet. I'll just strangle him, wrestle into the
I'm
ground.
gonna run. I'm not designed for violence.
Fred Flintstones with the Ultima.
With the Ultima.
Fully. Bye.
Yeah, what that would do.
Let's put that in neutral and get out of here. See ya, suckers.
All right. Well, getting into today's episode, again, we're going to kind of hit on some different technologies that we use within the clinic, things that just kind of help make our life easier in the day-to-day of the clinic, things that may help us with our productivity, but things that may also help us in communication with the clients as well. So what I want to start with is just our clinic app. So most clinics these days have some sort of mobile app that clients can use just for different things. So what have you guys seen in the clinics you've been around in terms of an app, if you have seen one, and what kind of services are provided to the client via the clinic app?
This is Chris. I'm not going to name any names, but there's a group that I work with where they have like their own specific app for the practice, and then you can do your appointments on the app. You can sign up for their plans on the app, so everything's driven from the app. But you can also text the practice, and then you can get answers back on your pet through the app. So that's where they're pretty app driven there. And it's kind of a cool process because you just open up your phone and, hey, I have a question about so-and-so, and you can ask the doctor straight through the app or make an appointment or do whatever.
This is Jeff. As far as I know, I don't think we have an app yet, but I have had since a lot of my cases are referrals, so they have their family vets. I know that there's some apps out there. Just yesterday I had a client and I was asking them about recent blood work, and they were like, oh yeah, like I can just like look that up, and they just opened their phone and scrolled to it and handed me the phone. I was like, I think it was normal, and I was like literally looking through. I was like, oh yeah, like CBC Kim looks pretty good, thyroid good. Okay, thanks. And I wrote that down because they hadn't sent me records yet, so that was really helpful. So I know they're out there, but I don't have much experience with them. But that was like I guess the obvious thing is like, wow, records, easy, right at your fingertips.
This is Brandon. My experience, like through my career, has either been with VCA's specific software. So that's where a lot of my perspective is going to come from. It's called Woofware. And then with residency, Iowa State has their own like software. Iowa State doesn't have some sort of app integration. It's like all homegrown software there. The VCA has a cool one. It's like an app that's like, if you're a client, you can like have all your pets on there. You can see when vaccines are due. And then you have a way to like contact the clinic through the app as well and do a lot of different things like you guys have already described. So I think that they are very useful if the client like really knows how to use them. And like we have a pretty wide population of clients, and some are very tech savvy and some are not.
Yeah, for sure. And, again, those are the kind of things I've seen too, being able to schedule appointments, looking up records, vaccine records, blood work records, which again, that's a great point, Jeff, that I hadn't even realized was how many times do, even in GP, but especially at a referral, a client comes up for an appointment and they don't have any records with them. But, if they have an app that's associated with another clinic, hop on there, pull up the records, show you what you need to see, even if you haven't gotten those records from the other clinic. So that's a really good one. I do really like that. Communication with the hospital, that's a big one as well. That kind of leads me into the next topic here with telehealth. Telehealth has obviously become hugely popular, especially here in recent years, especially with COVID. Everybody was kind of stuck at home due to the pandemic, and telehealth really became key to kind of ongoing with health management. So telehealth, it can get kind of tricky. I know there are some pros and cons to that, but what are some things that you guys have seen in potentially your experience with telehealth or others that you know of that have done some telehealth. What are kind of the pros and cons that you guys have seen with that?
This is Chris. So I like telehealth. We don't have an app or anything at my practice that I'm at, but the big thing that I know we've used or have done is if we have clients that have had surgery done recently, and I always tell them on discharges is, hey, if you're like iffy about the incision or something looks weird with the dog, or you even after doing a CCL repair, I'm like, hey, you're just concerned, take a video or send us a picture of your dog or of the incision, and we can be like, hey, that looks okay for the most part, or no, bring it on in, that we don't like how that looks. And for the most part, it's worked out pretty well. So like I see an incision, like, yeah, it looks like there's some discharge there. I don't like it. Bring it on in. We'll take a look at it. Most of the time it's nothing, but it's like, hey, that's just normal healing, a little bit of bruising. You're fine. If it gets worse, let us know. So that's kind of how we've done some telehealth things. And then also for medicines, if they're wanting to know, hey, my dog's on pain meds like gabapentin, and all I tell them is to call us if you want to change the dose or say, hey, it's not working well enough or we need to have better pain control. Then I'll talk them through the dose of, hey, yeah, we can increase it to this dose, and they should be fine with that. So that's kind of how I've used telehealth, has been more for answering medication questions and then some of the surgery discharge stuff.
This is Jeff, and I'll say my experience with it has been interesting. I agree. Like, I feel like it kind of took off during COVID as far as like offering more exams, because the legality, I know it changes state to state. So my understanding from Kentucky was like, when I guess maybe in our state, maybe our board kind of adjusted their rules and kind of sent out this notice of like, here are guidelines for how you can see appointments at home via basically like Zoom type of appointments. And we had a specific program that we were working with. I don't remember the name, but it doesn't matter because it was actually kind of challenging to work with. I felt like it was kind of glitchy, and it was like maybe newer, trying to get this technology out really quickly, but that's neither here nor there. But I would say when it did work, I could like, essentially the clients would log on, pay for the price of an exam, and then they would show me the pet, dog or cat, of course, and I could ask about like their last exam and see like what was going on. Okay, show me the belly, show me between the toes. The pros are that it's extreme convenience, right? So I could still fulfill things like, I believe it was allowed to count as if it's an appointment doing really, really, really well, best for those, and it could count as like your 1 year appointment for them. But new appointments, I believe it did not count for, like, I don't think you could use it as an initial appointment. I think it had to be a recheck, was my best understanding, as far as once you've established the veterinary patient client relationship, the VPCR, then you could continue it via rechecks. So that's a downside to it, but also that makes sense because you are going to best assess a dog in person or your patient in person. And from dermatology side, I also can't sample my patients, so I'm often checking for secondary infections on almost every case I touch. Ear cytology, skin cytology. Of course, I can't collect cultures or do any sampling. So there were some clinics, because I'm a part of a group that has like 30 plus different clinics. There are some clinics utilizing it just as like a check-in for patients doing well, and kind of like, you're doing great, keep it moving. If you live really far away, this is really great for you. And then sometimes there were clinics that were like, okay, this is a good check-in, but you still have to come in and actually see me, and maybe I do like a brief exam or make small but reasonable adjustments to your plan. And then there are clinics that use it as like a stepping stone of like, okay, that looks like it's infected. Come in and have a technician do the cytology. I'll read it, and then you'll just kind of come in, get your cytology taken. You will still go home, and it'll be a tech drop off, and then you'll touch base and communicate in that way. So it's like used in 2 or 3 different ways based on whatever the flow for the clinic was. So I felt like it was a really good way, and it's still utilized a little bit now, but less so than like height of COVID. But like, what a nice way to give owners an option, especially when they live really far away, to touch base and at least see the pet, but it's not as good, of course, as seeing them in the clinic, I think.
This is Brandon. I like a lot of what you said, and I think the biggest thing for me is what you touched on is like physical exam. Like that's such a big part of our like initial evaluation if it's a new patient, and even if it's like a recheck type of deal, which I think is where these like telehealth in itself shines. If we've already seen the patient, we have a plan, and there's something that we're working on as far as our problem, we can check in on them much easier online rather than having them come all the way back to the clinic. But that all being said, like there's some things like for a lot of my patients, like medicine, we do a lot of long-term follow-up. We do a lot of chronic disease management. And some of these diseases are pretty big in that I need to really see what this patient looks like in person to decide whether or not they need some sort of big intervention. Like, for example, an IMHA that was in the hospital for a week had a super, super low red blood cell count. We finally got them through that. They come back a week or two later. I need to see, how is this patient feeling? How are they doing on their medications? Is their red blood cell count still low? Like, did it drop again? Like, those are obviously things that I just can't do over the phone. I think where it does shine, though, like with telehealth specifically, is this client maybe came from a hospital that's like 3 hours away, and maybe I can directly communicate with a veterinarian that's doing all of those diagnostics in person, where this client only had to drive 5-10 minutes down the road to go to their vet and do those things. And rather than them being like, I don't know, like how to interpret this, I don't manage these cases all the time, they could just directly talk to me and be like, hey, so-and-so's here for the recheck. This is what we have. Do you have any specific recommendations? I think that's where, at least in the internal medicine space or in like the specialty practice space, I think I see telehealth like really being the most useful, because it gives us a way for clients that travel to not have to travel so far, and at the same time, get still good quality of care with the guidance of not only their general practitioner, but a specialty practitioner that's involved with their case as well.
This is Jeff again, Braden. One thing I wanted to piggyback up off of, or that you made me think of, was I know that there are practices out there, when we were kind of talking about this in our clinic, how to incorporate it. There are other specialty practices that will utilize like if you can't consult directly with an internist, the veterinary, like the family vet would directly consult you. So that is one way that they could do it while that pet is in clinic. So like you as a specialist wouldn't necessarily speak to the client, but they could still present the patient to you and talk in real time. I think there's a lot of value in that. And you still get paid for your time. So it's helpful in a symbiotic relationship and directly seeing that patient, getting more hands-on. And then afterwards, they would like write up a little report, send that to the doctor who requested that in-house consult. And then, of course, again, like you get paid for your time because you have to block that off on your schedule. And I assume that price would go to the client because it's an extra service that's not required.
Yeah, there's Brandon again. There's different ways to do it. Like right now, at least at Iowa State, with me as a resident, like there's not a specific monetary like kickback that we get. There's not like an additional charge for that kind of service. But in private practice, like I think the way that I see things working really well is if like a general practitioner wanted to follow up on something like that. IMHA case is a great example because they can be kind of complicated, and things can go south really quick if we're not careful. Like, yeah, you could put that additional like quote unquote charge to talk to a specialist on the client, but then the general practitioner is getting the monetary like growth from the blood work that they ran, their own consult fee, any refills of the meds that they need, which is oftentimes stuff that's carried in the hospital, like cyclosporin or prednisone. So, like that's a very specific example, but like general practitioner gets a lot of like, service or not service, kind of business from seeing that client in person. At the same time, the case is being managed, by a specialist in the background, and the specialist gets, part of that since they're still involved in the case, even though they're not directly there. Like I think that would be a really good way for everyone to be compensated for what they're doing. Because I'm not there like getting the blood draw. Like our techs aren't getting the blood draw from the dog in this case, or we're not having to like have the client there in person and talk to them. The general practitioner would do that. So I think like in that specific case, the general practitioner would kind of rake in the the cash from that, and then I would still get like a little bit of like my compensation as well. At least that's how I see things working for everybody.
I agree. I see some of that happening a little bit more, and it's always an interesting conversation. Not to derail us too far, but I know that in talks with like other specialists, there's that fine line of we want to maintain and keep an excellent relationship with our referral partners and always be available for phone calls as well. So it's interesting to see like how other cities and hospitals have incorporated that relationship with some revenue involved with consults versus just having a phone call, because some doctors will keep you on the phone for a very, 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 very long time, and it's they perhaps overuse our ability to just phone call us. That's a little bit of telehealth in its own right. So having some sort of revenue structure and implementing it, I'd be interested to see how that goes. But of course, everything isn't about money, but we also want to make sure we're appropriately compensated for our time as well when we're really diving into some of these cases that require a lot of expertise and follow-up.
Yeah, and just really quick to add on that too, it's like the same thing goes for a new consult. Like maybe a patient goes to a general practice hospital. They're like, what the heck is going on? They do some of the initial workup. They send us information, say, hey, we've got this case, like a lot of folks do nowadays. Like, what do you recommend? And if you have I know we're getting into the business side of things really quick, but like if you have like a structure set up for that, like, whatever consult fee you decide, do these diagnostics. This is what I'm concerned about. And then you can also like get business from that. Like, hey, do this stuff and then ship them my way. And we can get them in and then do like the full workup. And then that helps me because I don't have to start from scratch. I can pick up where the general practitioner left off. And, we can work together to take care of the patient.
Yeah, I love the back and forth here, the different ideas and everything. I totally agree. I think the specialist getting a little kickback from the communication there, because you guys are busy. You have busy schedules, and you guys are very gracious to take the time out to kind of field those calls from the GPs in the area. In terms of telehealth and what we're seeing, it sounds like a lot of what you guys are hearing or seeing is a lot of some rechecks, but also communication with other doctors as well, which I can very much see this playing a role in that. In terms of communication with the client, I've seen telehealth also kind of be a fielding type of gateway to, does this need to be seen? Is this something that needs an appointment? Seen where not me personally doing the telehealth, but other doctors have done the telehealth prior to an appointment that was scheduled with me at some clinics. So the client reached out to some sort of service or a veterinarian through telehealth. They said, yes, this needs to be seen by your veterinarian, and then they schedule the appointment to come in. So that's one other way that I've seen it at play that I feel like is beneficial. Now, with that being said, when we're talking about appointments, not necessarily with a new client, so let's say we're already a established client that we see on a fairly regular basis, we have a good working relationship with. Do you feel like there, and maybe not so much from a specialist side, but maybe more so from a GP side, do you feel like there are specific things that we see in the clinic that just routine run-of-the-mill things that we see that could be managed solely as a telehealth appointment, or do you feel like we need that physical exam, we need those potential additional diagnostics for every case, or are there certain things that you feel like could potentially be managed just at the telehealth level for an already established client?
This is Chris, since you're calling out GP in particular. So for some cases, I mean, I don't say it's because it's telehealth because I want it to be, is we'll have clients call and say, hey, I don't want to come in for an exam. My dog has diarrhea. Can you treat it? And so my response back is they can try a probiotic and Endozorb. And if it doesn't get better, then they need to come in for an exam and do a bland diet at home. And if it's one of those dogs who's like a repeat offender, like that usually works for it, versus me just giving out metronidazole willy-nilly, I rather them try that first, bland diet. If it doesn't get better, come on in. It also depends on the time of the week. They're calling like Tuesday morning and they don't want to call, like, yeah, try it out. And if not, come in by Friday. So it just depends on that. Some dogs for limping too. Again, it's case by case with this and the clients. And if you know them well, like we have some that we know well, like, hey, our dog's limping again. We know it's got arthritis. We've seen it multiple times. They're really good about bringing it in. We'll typically say, hey, here's a couple of days worth to get some pain relief, but come on in. We need to see them just to establish everything, but we don't want to withhold meds just for them to be in pain for 3 or 4 days. So, and usually we know those clients are really well. They'll come in and schedule the appointment like the next day or two. They're just trying to figure it out with their work schedule. Like, we'll work with them on those. So those are some like pseudo telehealth, I guess. But for the most part, I don't like prescribing meds just over the phone to give them. So it depends. It's case by case. I don't really have a perfect answer for that.
And this is Jeff, and I would say, I mean, same answer. It depends, right? Always, and most answers are that bad. But I would say cases that would lend themselves well to telehealth. Good grief, I'm going to say it right. Telehealth. Cases that lend themselves well to telehealth would be like behavioral cases. So I know that there are certain cases where if you just need to, especially if you see them at home, if there's videos that you can see of them as well and things that you can change, sometimes you do need an extended time to just chat with the owner and potentially to be able to see what the pet is doing at home or share videos. If there's something like the obvious things, I think would be like a well-controlled allergy case. If I can look all over the dog and it doesn't have any spots that are concerning for infection, I can make adjustments for antipyretic medication right then and there pretty easy, especially if they're flaring. But if they don't have any spots on them that look like they're concerning, then I can make adjustments and be pretty confident in my choices. If I see something more like a nutrition case, that's a potential. I'm thinking of things that I've actually referred to other services like nutrition services at universities that do telehealth. Nutrition and behavior come to mind. But then something more like a ear case, for example, I need to see it. I want to look into the ear, see if the eardrum is intact. I really don't like prescribing ear medications without seeing them. And I want to do an ear cytology and see if there's infection today. I get a lot of owners, unfortunately, saying, hey, they're flaring. It's the same thing as last time. But based on the research, an ear infection can change within 2 to 3 weeks. It can be all bacteria one day and 2 weeks later be all yeast. So that's just something that we have to educate owners on. And I say, for most ears, I really want to get them in. I want to look down in the ear because some medications can really have adverse reactions if they get into the middle ear. So it's best if I take a look, and because those infections can change. So there's some I think work really well, lending themselves to telehealth, and then there's some that I'm just like, I really gotta get you in and take a look.
Yeah, I like that approach. I'm very much. This is Brandon. I'm like, I have to do a physical, like, to really get a good sense of what's going on. Like from where I approach things, to do like a more definitive, like workup plan and assessment. But I think the beauty of GP, like I think we've all been GPs here. The beauty of GP to me is like, you have, sometimes you'll have these clients that have one dog that's maybe older that you maybe started with when you were like just getting into practice. That dog you treat for a few years and manage, and then maybe something happens, they pass away, and that person gets a new dog, a new puppy, and then you get to meet that puppy, do all their vaccines. A year later, they're coming in for their recheck. You establish this like fantastic relationship with the clients. Unfortunately, I just don't get to do that anymore. That's one of the things that I miss the most. So when you have, like, as far as rechecks are concerned, you have, so and so that you've been seeing their dog every year for like 6 years, 7 years now, and they're like, oh hey, he's peeing more frequently and drinking more. There's a lot of differentials for non-veterinary folks. We call that PUPD. There's a lot of differentials. If that client made an appointment and you saw them the first time, there's some things that you'd kind of want to do after you get that initial assessment and history that would take more time. The telehealth, I think one way that it would shine is if you already have a relationship with this client, they have this history of PUPD, you can set up a telehealth appointment. Number one, you can confirm that's the problem, because I think all of us have been in situations where it's like limping on the board, and then they come in, they're like, no, he's itchy. So like you could just mitigate that. Like,
he's never lived a day in his life.
What? Yeah. So, if you do a telehealth appointment, however you run it, like if the technician still gets a history and then you talk to the client, for this example specifically, PUPD, I could be like, okay, you get a more thorough history, have a better sense of like when it started, what's going on. And then, ideally, yeah, you're going to have to get some blood work done. You're going to have to get urine run, but you could have the client like directly talk to them about, let's get a first morning urine sample and make sure we get the most concentrated sample. Let's try and get, multiple samples so that we can get the most like average of what he's doing throughout the day. Like there's different things like that type of scenario where you can kind of jumpstart what you need to do for an appointment without the client having to come in and then talk. And then now you have all this other stuff that you need to do at a second appointment. You can just nix that right then and there. And then you could also, save the client a little bit of money up front, because I'm sure we'll be charging for these appointments, obviously, but maybe not the amount that we'll be charging for them to come in and actually spend time to go through the case in hospital.
Shifting gears a little bit away from telehealth, going into our medical record keeping software that we have at the clinic. I know there's a handful of them out there. Some clinics, some of the bigger clinics, even have their own software. There's some common ones out there that we see as well. But what are some of the softwares that you guys have used? What are the pros and cons, the advantages, disadvantages? What do you like about certain ones, or troubles that you find with them as well?
This is Jeff. I would say just in general, some of the ones that I've worked with or seen are, I know Animal Intelligence is one, AI. Cornerstone is really big and popular, especially because it was in Blue Pearl hospitals, and I used to work in one of those. Avamark, I think I worked with a couple of years ago, and EasyVet is one that's becoming more common as well. And I was joking around with Chris earlier and mentioning that there's programs like Cornerstone where it's like the land of 1,000 clicks, which is just like you can absolutely get the job done. I actually don't have major problems with the program, but it is like you have to learn how to click around to get what you want. But often I find that I was just doing a lot of tinkering and clicking, and when I kind of got my flow, it was perfectly fine. But I felt like there was a huge learning curve to get started with it when I first started using it. And then there's other programs where you are working almost in like boxes when you're putting in your medical record, as opposed to writing everything almost in like a Word doc style. And now our current one has more of like the boxy style, like diagnosis, write it in, plan diet, write it in, discharges to the client, write it in. I kind of like that a little bit better, being a little bit more segmented, but I do lose out on the full page of what I'm sending because in specialty land, I'm usually sending out like a full referral letter, usually like a one pager of what we've done for the day that goes out every single time. And I remember one of the older programs I used in GP was more like an auto-populated template of a physical exam, and it populated normal. So the pros and cons of that are like you have to go in and make sure you change everything from normal and make the adjustments correct, because at the end of the day, this is still a legal piece of paperwork, and it makes you quicker, but you got to do it right.
This is Brandon. Yeah, I'll jump in on kind of where you left off there with the physical exam thing. So, like I mentioned before, I've got experience with Iowa State's like proprietary software, and then I've got experience with like VCA's proprietary software. And I'll be going back to that VCA software when I go into work at a new clinic here in the future. But like you mentioned with the one that you talked about that has like individual boxes, that's basically how my Iowa State software is set up. And I do like it. Like you can just kind of fill in what you want in certain sections. And for me, I can kind of see the whole thing. The thing that I hate about that software is that you just have to type in everything from scratch every time, which is very frustrating. Whereas with my old software, Woofware is what they call it at VCA. Like you can talk to 20 different VCA vets. They'll all tell you different opinions about the software. I personally really liked it because I just learned how to use the system the way it was meant to be used. So going back to what you said about inputting a normal physical exam, what that software allowed you to do was it had its kind of individual boxes. You can put in abnormalities with the different physical exam findings that are abnormal, and you can hit a button and everything else would auto-populate normal. That was normal, which is really nice. You could make different normals for like, you could like make a template for normal dog, normal cat, normal whatever. They'd have their own separate sections for assessment and plan that you would type in separately, and you can make templates for that. And then for the referral letter side of things, sending out referral documents to the primary vet that you're going to see, you hit a button, it populates all that stuff in one page. You edit it as you need to because you can edit all of it individually and then ship it off. It's like, it was super convenient to use. And I'm really looking forward to get back into that. And I'm sure we'll talk about like efficiency more because that's one of the big pros with all this stuff is just trying to make us more efficient and do less paperwork. But like there's a lot of different ways to be efficient with the software.
This is Chris. I don't really love any software out there a whole lot. Like it's a tool to use, and we have to use it. Can't say I've had a lot of experience. The most I've had is with Cornerstone, and then the other one is VetSpire, which I think is pretty similar to EasyVet. The VetSpire one has more of like the block where you go through each section, kind of like you guys are saying as one option you're using, and then Cornerstone, you're clicking it a lot, but we do have our templates in there, so we can kind of make it for how we want to make yourself more efficient. Kind of like Brandon said, he likes one software because he's used it how it's supposed to, and it's probably just it gels with how his thought process is. So I think it just depends on what you like and what works for you.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a handful of softwares out there, probably more than we even know. And really it comes down to what's going to be the most efficient for you and your clinic. If you're a practice owner, I encourage you to keep your options open. Don't get stuck in the past. I mean, if it works for you, it works for you, what you got, but always keep your options open. There may be something out there that's going to work better. If you're an employee, hate your luck, but you're stuck with what they give you. So you might as well take advantage of it and learn it to the best of your ability and take advantage of everything it has to offer.
And this is Jeff. And one other thing I was thinking of that was helpful with programs is like there's cloud-based ones now, like EasyVet, and the ones that are more, I don't even know what the opposite is, not cloud-based. So one thing I like about our current program with
server-based.
Server, that sounds like a good word. With the licensing, like on my computer that I use at home, we have to have like the program either downloaded or the license on my computer to use like older our older program was Cornerstone, but now with like EasyVet, I can just log on online to our Magic Cloud and I can access it from anywhere. So that access has been really nice as far as, I just need to pop in and see what my schedule looks like tomorrow. Versus if I'm in Cornerstone, I have to use my work computer and boot it up. I can't just use that anywhere. So that's been an interesting change that I've been a fan of.
That is pretty awesome. I do like the cloud based technologies that we're starting to see, and that kind of brings me into our next question as we kind of round things out and get towards the end here. But with the ever changing world of technology that we live in these days, what are some technological changes that you guys have seen implemented in a clinic, or something that you haven't seen but you would like to see implemented in the clinic, in your clinic, to kind of help you with your day to day?
The coolest thing I've seen so far that I've liked the most has been texting from the computer to different clients, because for things like, hey, we need to get approval to run blood work or to do whatever diagnostic, we can, if we call them and they don't pick up, we can text them. And a lot of times clients have been better at texting back, get it without work and everything. So they'll text us back like, yeah, go ahead and do it. So that's been kind of cool. Also following up on cases has been good as well, versus having to call and taking a little bit longer to call. You can just shoot a text message quickly to see, hey, how's Fluffy doing? How did everything go yesterday? And there's actually templates for that as well. So it just makes it fly by faster to, one, check in on everybody, but you can also check in on more patients at once. So, and then they can also text us pictures, like I said before, with like the incisions and stuff. So all of that has been really cool. So my favorite thing so far has been texting. And again, not texting from our phone, but just our techs and receptionists can text from the computer and get a lot of stuff done just from that alone.
And this is Jeff, and I was going to quickly piggyback off the texting. I really like it. We more recently got into texting through, I guess it may be an app. Since I'm not client facing, I don't use it, but I know that like if I'm finishing up videotoscopy or anesthetic procedure, we have been starting to text them and just giving the owner a heads up, like, hey, we're starting the procedure. Hey, Fluffy's out. The doc is going to give you a call in a few minutes as soon as they're more awake. And hey, expected pickup time is XYZ. And we've gotten a lot of good feedback from that. In addition to, they can cancel appointments through either texting or through that software as well. I think it is an application. And one that I was going to say has been really helpful is, or that I've heard about that I really want to implement soon, is we're getting the kiosk system that Dr. Tyler Pelfrey mentioned a couple of episodes ago, where an owner can come in and they can check themselves in, I think by just logging on to the app or like through our new medical record system, and they can check themselves in through a kiosk. We automatically get an update on our schedule saying that they're here, and then they don't have to call or wait or come in. They can just relax and say, I'm here. We know they're there, and we can communicate with them immediately, or they can let us know if they're going to be late.
No, it's too bad I wasn't there for that episode, because it's funny, like VCA does that stuff already. They have a system where they can like check in online, and I remember back, they have apps that you can download. It's just your calendar, so you can see your calendar for the day as the doctor, and then when a client checks in, you'll get a notification like on your phone that they checked in, which is really nice. And I like what you guys said about like the text messaging. I think it's just like, instead of going back and forth calling a client, getting their voicemail, like spending 20 minutes or having your tech spend 20 minutes trying to get a hold of somebody or the front desk, shoot them a quick text. Like most people nowadays know how to respond to text, and it's so much faster. And what Chris mentioned earlier, just templates. Like templates will save your life. At least they saved mine. I had templates for communications that I used like frequently. I had templates for different problems that I'd see. Like for when I was a GP, I'd have templates for vaccines and like a dog, or 12-week vaccines or whatever. Like just ways to make your time more efficient, and that way you can spend more time like not in the clinic, or focusing on your patients that have more complicated problems. I think the big thing that I wanted to bring up that I think will become more and more of a thing that's integrated into practices in some way or another is like right now, AI is a big topic, large language models in particular, just these programs that are designed to like essentially predict the next word. That's what like how these things work. So if we had those systems in play in hospital where you put in, oh, I'm seeing this patient today, top differential is IMHA, that thing could just spit out like an assessment already that's like preformed, a discharge summary that's preformed with the patient's name on there. Obviously, you need to go in and check it yourself and make sure everything's accurate. But instead of you having to sit there, do all that stuff, or work with your templates or whatever, if it's just like done, you make minor edits. That like the biggest thing for me at work that I just want to claw my eyes out is sitting there doing paperwork for like hours. And with medicine, we just do a lot of it. Like I have like complicated cases that have a lot of things to talk about, and I hate sitting there typing. Like if I had a way to not have to do that, but focus on seeing the patient, doing procedures, all this other stuff, like you could spend more time doing that, potentially see more patients, and be happier. That's the way I see it down the road. But that's like kind of a dream of mine.
Yeah, and this is Jeff again. And what you made me think of, Brandon, is as far as efficiency, there are now programs like Text Expander, which is a program on my computer that pops up, and I can type in a note like, for example, the word bath, and it will type up. I can set it to say, bathe patient for 10 minutes, leave on, rinse with cool water. Like I can type much quicker and be more efficient with that. So that's something that anybody can like download. I don't know if it costs money or not, but I know it's something that my company invested in. And there's also voice to text, which we didn't talk about that much, which I didn't fall in love with, but I know that there's a lot of doctors that have the big old microphone and put by their desk and just rattle off their notes and then like hopefully proofread their records to make them quicker. So things like that, I think, are the future, and quicker, even quicker than my previous recommendation was like having a Google Doc of quick little blurbs that I use. And now I'm transitioning into things like Text Expander, so I can just type less and throw it right into my record, and I'm just speedy. And the last one I was going to mention is I know at least one clinic in our area that uses a check-in system on a tablet. They give it to the owner, they put in recent medications and history, and they put that right into the record. And I'm kind of interested in that. Like you will always have follow-up questions, but I feel like that's really easy for efficiency if you just need to move on with your day.
This is Brandon again. Yeah, like all of those things are great. And it's the funny thing is like VCA's software has done all that stuff. The tablets we've done before.
Are they sponsoring VCA? Could you sponsor the podcast?
I hope that they would one day. But the cool thing with like, so the Wolfware software, like you said, this Text Expander software. So what I would do is you can make a template. You can put in like individual variables like he, she, a patient name, patient last name, whatever, save it, and then I can put in a little like shortcut and just say like semicolon IMHA, and all that stuff would pop up in the record like that. Love that software. I know people hate it, but I love it. It just made me I was so efficient with it, and I lost that when I went to Iowa State.
Soon.
Yeah, it's crazy, how fast technology is advancing, and the vet industry is not spared by that, and we've found ways to use that to our advantage, and I'm sure we'll continue to find ways to use it to our advantage, as what we've already highlighted here. And the sky's kind of the limit going forward. So to any of our listeners, if there's anything that you guys are doing in your clinics or you've seen done in other clinics, reach out to us. Let us know anything we didn't mention in this episode. We'd love to hear what you guys are doing, and maybe even feature you on a future episode. So just to kind of end us off here, as we're coming to the end of season 2 of the Dr. Bros, which is crazy. We've already had 2 full seasons.
Whoop, whoop.
So during our little hiatus here after season 2, what is one thing that each of you plan to work on for self-growth over the next few months? And I can start with this. It's really been the past few years that I've taken a pretty big interest into personal finance. I know we have several episodes on finance. That's because several of us are really into personal finance. So we'll probably have more, and I apologize to anybody who doesn't care about those, but they're going to be there. But for the next couple of months, I would like to really continue to focus on my personal financial growth for myself, for my family, finding that balance between paying down debts, saving, investing. Allison, my wife, actually even listened to one of our episodes and heard you, Jeff, mention the book I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And she said, maybe I should read that. And we actually ordered it, and it came in the mail today.
Let's go.
So we're both going to read that soon. So that's in there on the list of things to work on. But yeah, definitely work on and continue to work on and grow in our knowledge of personal finance.
Okay, so this is Jeff, and mine is actually reading. So I used to have a Kindle a long time ago, and I think back in vet school, but I want to get a new one because that has gone to the wind and I have no idea where it is, and get back into. I've been more of a reader this year, surprisingly, and I want to get a handheld one, turn the light low, and read more library books on it, just for fun, not for knowledge, and just to be more using my local library, and also why not?
This is Brandon. I have so many different things. I think I like what you said, Adam. Personal finance is one thing that I hope to work on, but residency has really taken my life away. I'm about to get it back, which is great. I love sports and I love doing things outdoors, and I have for lack of just to keep it simple, I've kind of let myself go a little bit, being just stuck at work and studying and everything else. So I guess I'll say it out loud to keep me accountable here. One of my goals, long-term goals, is to do an Ironman. And between now and whenever I sign up for that, I'm going to get into ridiculously good shape. That is one of my biggest goals, fitness. I'm ready to get back after it. My hope is that we can find I need a personal trainer. I need a coach to keep me accountable and to really push me. So that is what I'm looking forward to getting back into.
This is Chris. So I guess in the next few months here, I've been trying to be better about reading and reading more this year in general. So I've done pretty good with that, with reading audio books or just on my phone, some random books. So I want to continue with that, continue working out. I've been trying to get into a good groove of working out 2 to 3 times a week at minimum. So I would say just continuing those trends is kind of what I'm doing. So it's nothing new, but just to continue what I'm doing.
All right, now that we've all said that, pressure's on. We'll check back in at the start of season 3 and see how we did. So,
sounds good.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dr. Bros. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or anywhere you listen to podcasts. It would also help us out if you could share this episode with others who may be interested in today's topic. You can also tell us what you want to hear. You can drop suggestions in the comments or shoot us an email at thedoctorbros@gmail.com or DM us at thedoctorbros on Instagram. You can also reach me personally on Instagram at Dr. Adam DVM. That's DRADAMDVM.
And this is Jeff. You can find me on TikTok or Instagram at DermDrJeff, DermDogtorJeff.
And this is Brandon. You can find me on Instagram at DogTorMasonIM.
And this is Chris, and you can reach me on Instagram at dr.chrishernandez, as dr.chrishernandez.